We're continuing with conversations in the Lansing School District. I'm Bob Colt, and our guest today is Board of Education member Dr. Nathan Burroughs. And Dr. Burroughs, we haven't had an opportunity to have a conversation. Some people don't even know who you are, although you've been a veteran now on the school board for a while. Introduce yourself to the people of Lansing.
Hi. So I'm Dr. Nathan Burroughs. I'm an educational policy researcher at Public Policy Associates. Before that, I was at Michigan State University, and before that, Indiana University. So I moved around a bit. So my focus, my educational research is on issues of equity and school reform. And then a friend of mine who I worked with at MSU, Brian Beverly, let me know that there was a vacancy on the school board and encouraged me to apply. And I did. I got in, and then I ran for a full term and was elected, gosh, I guess it was 2 years ago now.
Yeah, so you are a veteran. Any regrets now running for a non-paid Board of Education position? It's something that you have to dedicate a lot of time and attention to, but education is really your field.
It is. And I mean, I'd been looking for a way to get back involved. When I was younger, I was very involved in various political campaigns, I worked for state representatives, and I interned in Congress. So I'd been kind of in political life for a long time and decided that that wasn't a good choice for me long term. But then after the 2016 election, I was looking for a way to get more involved without being quite as partisan a role as I was when I was younger. And then this opportunity opened up. I've actually enjoyed it, and Lansing's very fortunate. We actually have a remarkably well-functioning school board. Not all of my colleagues probably have as easy a time working with the other school board members as I do, but I've actually greatly enjoyed the experience.
Yeah, so you join the school board and you come in and you're on, and then you actually run to become elected. Now, you never probably thought that we would be in this COVID-19 environment. Education has dramatically changed. What are your thoughts about where we are today?
I mean, speaking more broadly about sort of education writ large, not just Lansing in particular, it's been a pretty radical challenge. I don't think most school districts were anywhere near prepared for it. But the real concern for me is it's actually exacerbated a lot of these background inequalities, things that were already a problem. So you're looking at inequities in education, whether you're looking at student or parental engagement, teacher morale and workload. A lot of those things were problems before, and now it's just become this is sort of shine a light on it. One thing I'm really excited that this has done, though, is it's made it very clear to policymakers that there's a very severe digital divide in this country, that about 25% of school-age children don't have access to high-quality broadband and a home computer. And because of that, this remote instruction is very challenging for them. That's something that we've known, but it took a crisis like this to really make it clear, and now it looks like there's at least some steps in the right direction to addressing it.
Lansing did a couple of things along with the device, about 10,000 devices, and creating hotspots and all of those things that people know the school district. This Board of Education had to make the important big decision to go ahead with face-to-face online learning, and Lansing was really the first. Looking back, any second thoughts about that important decision?
I think it's probably one of the best decisions that we made. I was really proud of what we did there. It was a really hard choice. But when you looked at the data, when you looked at the facts on the ground, we didn't know a lot about the risks to children, but we certainly knew what the risks were going to be to teachers and staff. And there were legitimate concerns about what the infection rate was going to be in the community. So we decided to just bite the bullet and go for it, and it ended up being the right thing to do, and also to commit to it. I think a lot of districts, the temptation might be, well, let's wait and see how bad it gets, or let's only do it on the short term. but then you're sort of, it's a start, stop, lurch, which is really bad for kids and for teachers in the school district. Whereas we said, okay, we're going to do this for at least the first part of the year. We're going to commit to it. We're going to figure out how to do it right. And some of us, Dr. Body is a doctor. I had some long conversations with him, and we were like, there's a real chance this could have another wave of the pandemic in the winter. So we need to be ready in case this stretches on into the new year. And it ended up being the right decision. And I think we did a good job with it.
And what are your thoughts now? I mean, we really are in that wave. There are vaccines coming, but you may have to make that important decision to continue on beyond the end of January. And I know a lot of Board of Educations are really facing the same sort of crisis decision.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I want to make clear, that it's not easy in the sense of like having to have kids stay at home and have remote instruction. It's not fun. This is not what the teachers sign up for. It's not nearly the kind of in-person experience. It's particularly challenging for kids who have disadvantaged backgrounds, or for younger kids, they don't get all that social contact. I mean, it's been hard on me working from home because I'm a social person. I don't get to see my friends and colleagues. I can't imagine what it's like for an 8 or 9-year-old who just doesn't understand why they can't play with their friends. So it's a real concern, but our health and safety really has to be the priority. And the numbers we're seeing now are as bad as they've been since the outbreak of the pandemic. I'm incredibly happy. I'm thrilled that there seem to be viruses in the works, but it's going to take months until they're ready to field. So we're probably going to have to take a deep breath and kind of work this out. It's not necessarily going to be fun, but I just think it's the safest and most responsible thing to do for our community and for our kids.
Well, and you're a data guy. I would really be interested in your perceptions. When we had the presentation to the board about the data, obviously what we've seen is usually if we have an attendance about 90%, it's 80 now online, just because maybe kids can't connect. Maybe there's some sort of issue on a particular day. Actually, it seems to be dropping a little as we get around the holidays. People, are not as focused and tuned in. I think everybody kind of wants a break. So tell me, based on the data that you've seen to the school board, tell me some of the things that you've seen.
I mean, you really keyed in on the most important issue. So honestly, I was hoping that our daily attendance rates would be at least 50%. I was very concerned that a lot of students just wouldn't be signing in because of the distractions, because it's just not what they're used to. To me, having 80% attendance rates in this environment, it's kind of a miracle. I was thrilled to see it. So I think the administrators and the teachers should be really proud of all the contacts they've done. I was impressed by just the sheer intensity of the contacts and the efforts that were made. I mean, I know I've heard from some parents that, there's always going to be still more to do. It's a Herculean task to try and reach out to them. But the other thing that I thought was really interesting is, we've now built this infrastructure for being able to do remote learning, but also to try and engage parents more. And I'm really hoping that we can continue that on into the new year and just sort of make that regular practice. So the data is important. I love those numbers, but it's the engagement of the parents and students where it's a little harder to measure, but you can tell if you're getting it right. And I think that's really where we should be focusing a lot of our efforts.
You put that in a great perspective. Well, you see attendance here and it dips a little online. You really had expectations that it would be a lot lower. So there's some success to claim in
Very
what we've done. And also, you've seen the school district evolve a little bit in how they're delivering the product. They've changed the screen time and had to make some decisions because they found that it really is tough for kids to stay engaged for a whole day.
I know. I mean, I myself very much experienced Zoom fatigue. Today's luckily not a lot of meetings for me, but I've had days it seems usually it's a Thursday when we have a school board meeting, and I'll have 6 or 7 meetings, and then we have a school board meeting that night. So it's by the end of the day, my brain is just cooked. So I completely understand how challenging it is. we probably we were a little too ambitious about the screen-to-screen instruction at first. I know some districts weren't doing enough engagement. I've heard other places, well, I want my kid to really be involved and really be getting that educational experience. It's going to vary from child to child and from parent to parent what their needs are. So we're just trying to strike that right balance. And we're all just sort of learning this as we go along. There was a little bit of research and a little bit of experimentation with online learning before, but there really wasn't a very strong research base or a lot of advice on what the best approaches were in the K-12 space, particularly for younger children. So this has been very much trying to build the plane while we're flying it.
We'll talk a little bit about those younger children, because the kindergartners, the first graders, they can't sit in front of a screen for 5 or 6 hours. We just found that to be true. The data points that out.
Right, and it's a real challenge, and I really feel for it. I mean, the childcare demands, particularly on working parents. We've seen a real problem with unfortunately, a lot of working mothers who are having to balance their job responsibilities with trying to take care of their kids at the same time. So there's no perfect solution to it. It's a huge challenge, but all kids, and this is probably a good lesson for us. It's not just the younger kids who you just can't plop down and have them just stare at a screen or passively absorb information for hours at a time. They need breaks. You need different kinds of learning opportunities, whether it's time outside, whether it's breakout sessions, some kind of way to interact, some kind of work that's done independently. That's something that we can incorporate into the regular school day. There's a rich body of work that shows that the worst way to teach kids is to have someone stand at the front of the room and just talk at them for an hour, right? That's the least effective form of instruction. So to some extent, this might be a great way to break us out of some of those patterns. But there's a lot to be learned here.
Well, and the school board has a lot of challenges coming up in the year. You'll be looking for a new superintendent, and then we'll have to see if and how the vaccine and flu virus actually progresses, if students can return, if they can't. You've got a lot on your plate as a Board of Education member.
Yeah, it's a lot. And you didn't even mention the budgetary concerns, depending on what the federal government does. A lot of people don't realize that we have to set a budget before we know what the state is going to give us to spend for the year per student, which is pretty challenging. So yeah, it's a lot of it's about being flexible, but also we've been really careful, and this started long before I got here. The district has done a good job about trying to build up systems and trying to sort of get its administrative house in order, whether it's financially or whether it's professional training and good professional practice, so that we can adapt quickly. I think you saw that in how quickly we were able to shift to remote instruction, and we're trying to follow the same kind of good stewardship when it comes to other anticipated and unanticipated challenges that are coming down the road. I'm hopeful that the state and the federal government will continue to understand the critical role that K-12 institutions play, not just in the raising of the next generation of citizens and workers, but of helping the whole society grow. I think a lot of people didn't quite realize what an important childcare function that K-12 institutions play. Schools are, the bedrock of a lot of these communities, and parents rely on them in order to be able to go to work and to focus on their professional responsibilities. I think a lot of people understand that a bit better. Our teachers have done a remarkable job, and I hope that policymakers and parents, I think a lot of them are beginning to remember what a critical role that they play in the community.
Well, Dr. Nathan Burroughs, we appreciate your time and your critical role that you play on the Lansing School District Board of Education. We appreciate you sharing knowledge and your wisdom here today. Thank you. I know we'll talk again in the future.
Thank you so much.